You're watching the She CEO podcast with Dr. Julie Ducharme, talking with female CEOs from all over the globe.
Hi, I'm Dr. Julie Ducharme, back for another episode of She CEO. So excited. I love doing this. It's so fun because I get to talk to women around the world who are in every job you can imagine, making change, making impact, and shifting the way this world goes. And so today I'm really excited to have Dr. Emily Letran with us. She is a general dentist who owns 2 multi-specialty group practices in Southern California. She received her Bachelor's of Science in Biology from UC Riverside and also a graduate of UCLA School of Dentistry. Also, after graduation, she participated in different residencies from Loma VA Medical Center and many residencies at Rancho Los Amigos Medical Center in Downey, California. But that's not it, ladies. She's not just a dentist. She is also a coach. She's a mother. She's a public speaker. She's traveling the world, making changes. And I'm so excited to have her here today. Welcome, Dr. Emily.
Thank you so much, Dr. Ducharme, for inviting me on here and creating the platform so we can share our story. I just need to add one line to my introduction, and that is, I'm the best mom in the world.
Yes, I love it. I love it. I'm so glad you said that. Well, we have so much to cover, and I think you and I, we could talk for like 2 hours. But I love reading. I love reading bios and going like, oh my gosh, they have so much awesome stuff because us women, we're not one-trick ponies. Like we can multitask like no one else. And every time I turn around, I mean, you and I always look and go like, okay, it's very rare I find people who are doing as much as I'm doing. And you're like right there. Like every time we turn around, we're like messing. You're like, I'm in Africa right now. I'm like, what? You're in Africa right now? And then suddenly you're on another stage. And so I really, really love that. And for those of you who are listening, Dr. Emily and I think we connected a couple of years back. And we've been, connecting ever since. And I'm super excited about all she's doing, and we're getting involved in a lot of great stuff together. But today we're talking to her because she's one of our top 10 women to watch for She Talks, and we're really excited about that because you are making so much impact. Before we get too far in, I really would love for you to talk about your story because I know your story, but our listeners don't. And I think it's so important to see the progression of where you were and where you are now. Very often women, and this, get kind of stuck with the barrier of like, oh, I can't do that. I'm not good enough. I'm not smart enough. I'm not big enough. I don't have enough of whatever. And I love to pull those excuses right away and show women like yourself who are doing that. So I'd love for you to share your story of maybe where you started and how in the world did you end up being a dentist and traveling the world and speaking on stages?
Yeah, well, thank you so much. And I want to recognize you for, inviting people and allowing people to tell their story, because I think it doesn't matter where you are, at which stage, your story matters.
Mm.
And I learned this, I think, back in 2011 when I had a chance to share my story in a little mastermind group.
Mm.
And, to me, when I share my story, I was just thinking, all the Vietnamese have the same story. If they came to this country from the late 70s until the early 90s, we all have the same story, which is a refugee story.
Mm.
And little did I know, in the whole group, nobody knew. Nobody knew what is a refugee? How did you get here? And that's when I realized that your story really matters, because you never know who should listen to that story, right? And which part of it touched people. So I was born in Vietnam back in the late 60s. Excuse me. And that's during the Vietnam War. And when the war ended and the communists took over, life just changed overnight because, Big Brother watching. So my aunt, my dad's youngest sister, decided to escape. And she took with her her 2 kids, me, my older brother, excuse me, and 2 other cousins. So here's this woman in her early 40s who left the country on a fishing boat along with 50 other strangers. And she got 6 kids with her, ranging from 7 to 16, the 6 of us. I left my father behind. My mother had passed away when I was 8 due to cancer. And I never saw my father again because it was not possible, for so many years to actually visit the country. And so eventually he passed away without me seeing him again. So I think for a lot of us in this I don't know when this is going to drop, but we talking on July 5th, right? And we
Yeah.
just celebrated, um, America's birthday, 250 years. And I think it's such a land of opportunity because when I came as a refugee, my luggage, like I tell people, is just hope and faith because there's not much you can do and there's not much that you know. Um, but I do know at that time is there's only one way to go, which is up because you started at the bottom. And so with all the help of the government, I was able to go to school, learn English, learn the language, learn the culture. I did my undergrad in 3 years because my one thing was I gotta hurry up. I gotta get into a good career so I can help the family at home. Because it's very common for a lot of immigrants or refugee when they're in this country, they always think back home. And then from there, I went to dental school, finished that in 4 years and got two licenses, two degrees, a DDS and an MS degree. Because again, I thought, you know what, we got to do our best, right? We got to come out with all those accolades and serve. And then I did, like you said, the residency and the mini residency, and it kind of changed because at the VA hospital, I was serving a lot of the veterans. So that's a very unique population. They have stories, right? They come into your dental chair and they started telling you the story from World War II, and then the Downey one are special patients. People coming in the wheelchair. People have spinal injury. So I just changed. It's like, okay, I have this path, but maybe I'm meant to serve more than just the regular, the general population. And so that took me on the path where I don't think I look at, serving people as a dentist the same way as a lot of other people. I learned about doing philanthropy. So I opened my door twice a year to just help underserved population in my office for free. And then I'm blessed. I met a lot of great mentors, learned from a lot of great people, and a lot of them are not even inside dentistry. And so I want to encourage everybody, wherever you are, you could be in corporate, you could be in a particular industry, look outside of that because sometimes people in the same industry think the same way, which is why they're on the same stage. And so look outside, and that's how we met. We met at a different conference.
Yeah.
And even our conference, we met at somebody's conference, and that just started a conversation and carried us all the way here. So I think anybody who's have difficulty or you think that you're stuck in a certain place, or maybe you start way behind everybody else. Well, I think starting as a refugee is pretty much way behind, and you can always catch up.
Yeah. And I love that mentality. Oftentimes, I like to call it first world problems, right? A lot of times we can have complaints that are really first world problems because we don't know. I always say get out of the American bubble, travel the world, and see what other cultures and other countries are doing. And it's such an important thing because, in the end, I just look back, I've traveled the world, you've traveled the world, and I'm like, America is such a unique space where it really can open the door for someone like yourself who was a refugee to have such success in that. And that's so powerful. And I agree with you that you've got to get out of your bubble, meet people, not just in your industry, but outside of your industry. And I was like a sponge like you. I grew up in the country. I didn't really know, big cities or these industries I was going into, but I just went to everything and listened to everyone. And I tried to just take everything in and hear all the different perspectives because there wasn't a lot of mentors for women in business when I was really going into business. And I'm really thankful for all the male counterparts in my life who did pour into me. But I really wanted to meet some women, who are out there doing it, who had the same struggles and issues and things. So I love your perspective on that because I think it's so important that we look at it from that perspective, right? That there's only up, right? And I like to say that like failure is a required component in order to survive life. The world makes failure such a bad thing. And I really look at failure like, you know what, that's just, okay, great. We got that failure done. Now we can move forward. We needed to trip on that or mess up on that. I've
Yeah.
had things that I thought were going to be spectacular and they were spectacular failures. Like they ended up and then we're like, well, that was a nice big
Yeah.
failure, but
I think at this point, when I got into something really difficult and really challenging, I would just ask, God up there, okay, uh, let me know what the lesson is. Like, I gotta learn this fast, because, and then let's go to the next lesson. And I think that's where, for people like us, that we have learned from a lot of people, and we in a lot of big rooms, you have that perspective. You're not at the top of your game. Maybe today you're at the top of your game for this moment, but there's always people better than you, right? Who are more successful or whatever. And then there's people that, maybe need your help. And when you always have that perspective and that humility, you're just gonna go so much further.
yeah, I think so. And I always like to say as an entrepreneur, like you have to have the mentality. I remember hearing different entrepreneurs who are wealthy, multi-millionaires, almost billionaires, right? I think it was from Shark Tank. And one of them was talking about that at one point in their career, they were so poor, all they had was a towel to sleep on, you know? And I think it was Mark Cuban was saying that. And all he had was a towel to sleep on while he was, building out to be this multimillionaire, billionaire. And I remember thinking to myself, I've never been that poor, like I thought I've never been that desperate. So anything like if he can make it with just having a towel to sleep on and nothing, well, shoot, I can like make it. I've never had it that bad. And I
Right.
think that's so important. And we've been talking a lot about sharing our stories, because this is such an important thing, obviously, for Lead and Power She Talks is I feel that our stories, can change people's lives. And, if we look at our history, how is the history told from almost every culture? It's stories that are passed down from generation to generation, and that's how they learn. And so, we've been working together lately a lot about telling our stories. And I know that you've published several books and I've published some. And the funny thing is, you being an academic like myself, I had a lot of really boring academic books that I published that were really good. Like if you want to read them before you go to bed, they'll help you sleep. But I remember the first time I actually published like a book about me and my struggles, and it was a bit of a memoir, and it was really eye-opening to have that experience because I think it's slightly terrifying to put out sometimes the real stories of yourself because there is a whole nother group of people out there to judge you, to look at you, to be like, oh, okay, well, that's your story. But there's some power in our stories and what we do. And so I found it incredibly freeing and healing when I wrote about it. And I know you've written several books like From Refugee to Renaissance Woman, and you've been in several other anthologies. And you're going to be actually in our anthology coming up for She Talks, which I'm very, very excited about. And the topic is honor. And so let's talk a little bit about that. And, when we talk about honor, sometimes people think, oh, that only goes with veterans. And I actually found that to not be true at all. Yes, it goes with our veterans, but there's also another list of things in there. And we talk about like, sticking up for yourself in a moment, making, a difference in someone's life, doing the hard thing when it's not easy. Like that's really when we're talking about honor, where that's at. And, what are your thoughts on that and this anthology that you're going to be part of?
Well, first of all, I'm so excited and thank you for including me in the anthology. And for me, I think, and I understand the reference of honor to the veterans. Um, for me, because of the coaching background, we always tell our clients, to honor yourself first, right?
Mhm.
And I think a lot of time, when we tend to look outwards, right? Oh, she does so good. She this, she that. And one of the reminder that we should have with ourselves is, we actually know quite a lot. Like, as an individual, and you've been through so much. And I'll tell you a quick exercise that I learned from my coach, Brendan Bouchard, is he said, okay, write down, 20 challenges that you have for this year that, you got to solve. So everybody's writing that down. Then he'd go, okay, we'll turn the page. And now I want you to give your 20-year-old advice. Just give 20 advice. So then we're sitting there writing the advice. And then he said, okay, flip back to the other page. How many of you can use those advice to solve the 20 challenges that you just said you had? And you find that a lot of you have the answer right there. You just don't think about it that way. And so to honor your journey, or sometimes we say honor the struggle, right? Honor what you have done. I'm Asian, so you always honor your parents, your grandparents, your ancestors. You may be born in a certain family because of what your grandparents and your mom and your dad have done. And so for me, the word honor is, I think it's a little bit more individualistic, right? It's do yourself, do your journey, do what we just talked about, do those life lessons that we have to learn, that we have gone through. And I think sometimes we don't honor ourselves enough.
Yeah, that's such a good point. And I want to dig even deeper on this because I think as women, and I'm finding that this is happening worldwide, it's not just a specific culture, but as women, especially so many of us that are overachievers, we don't recognize, our worth when we're out there, right? Like I meet women every day, amazing women who are killing it, and you give them a compliment and they blow it off. They're like, oh, no, like that's not me. That's not a big deal. And I'm like, oh my God, that is like a big deal. And I think this is really an important thing you're hitting on because, I always look at this like, if we can't recognize our worth and what we're doing, how do we help other people? And when I had my daughter, I realized that I had to change my rhetoric because by the time she was about 2, she was picking up on me saying negative things about myself. And it was a real like, whoa, okay, hold up, Julie. You can't say you're fat in the mirror because your kid hears it. You can't say, ooh, I look ugly today because your kid is hearing it. And I realized how much I had to shift my attitude because I had these little sponges all around me absorbing it. And of all the things, I didn't want my daughter having that perspective of her in her life, which I'm very glad to say that the other day, I said something to her. She was trying on some clothes or something. And I said, you know what, honey, you look really cute in anything. And she goes, Mom, I know I look really good. And I kind of giggled because it was like, I loved it, but at the same time, it was kind of cute. And she's like, I know I have a really great body, Mom. I know, blah, blah, blah. And she went on and I was like, yes, because I spent so much time wanting her to love her body as it is. But I realized I had to love myself in front of her so she could do that. And I feel that circles back around to what you're saying is I had to honor who I was in that. And man, that's powerful because I know you have a daughter and I'm sure you've run into, she's full grown now, right? And she's a dentist as well.
Yes. Well, I want to say it's, I think, especially for us women, because we usually are the main one raising the child, right? Meaning you take care of them. And most of the time, maybe you have a husband who's out to work, from 9 to 5, and then he come back, and for some reason, everything got miraculously done, right? Because you drop off the kid at school and you pick up the kid and you make lunch, you make dinner, and and you help with homework and all that. And I think the honor here is understanding that you're a role model, right? Just like you say, whatever you say, the kid is going to pick up. Now I have 3 grown-up children who will give back to me what I usually lecture. I made them go to one of my seminars, and now they're just like, they give it back to me. What I say, I'm trying to do something, and they go, that does not sound like high performance at all. And I go, shut up, I'm trying to cook,
Oh my gosh, I love that.
Yeah, but because you're that role model, and not just your kids are watching you, and sometimes they don't tell you. I have this opportunity, and there was overhearing my son during his interview. This is back when he was in high school. He was interviewing for a program, like a 2 weeks summer intern, something. And I overheard him telling the people, the committee, that I'm his role model. There's no way in the world he would tell me that. So that was really touching because really this kid is thinking of me as a role model, right? Because
Yeah.
I'm with them, it's more like a friend, mom
Yeah.
and kids. So sometimes I think we don't realize that. We don't
Mhm.
stop and pause and say, you know what? I got my kids watching me. You run a company. I got my employees
Mhm.
watching me. Because sometimes we just try to go
Mhm.
and do our best and we try to suit up and and look good when we're in a presentation or maybe we have an important meeting. But we forget that every day we are that role model that
Mhm.
everybody around us is watching.
Yeah.
And I think that's going back to honor yourself, right? Like you're
Mhm.
living your life every day in your authenticity,
Mhm.
then you don't have to suit up. You know what I mean? Because
Yeah.
who you are at work is should be the same person showing up to the board meeting,
Mhm.
doing a special deals, except with some preparation. But it would be so much more comforting, I think, for a lot of people if they know that they're good enough
Mhm.
with everything that they achieve in life, whether it's
Mhm.
being a mom or a spouse or a daughter,
Mhm.
and just show up for themselves, right?
Yeah. I
You
agree
just
with
show up.
you.
Yeah.
Yeah. And I love that. I love that he said you were his role model. And I think sometimes as parents, we work really, really hard. And like you said, we don't realize the impact we're making until later down the road. I used to joke and say, listen, I'm just trying to make sure my kids are a contributing part of society and they can get out and they can take care of themselves and all that stuff. But I think in the long run, we don't always know the impact we make until later down the road. And that's powerful. I love that you're talking about that. Now you mentioned high performance coaching, and so I do want to touch on this because this is something you do, which once again I'm always in my mind, like you're a dentist, you're all these things, and I'm like, how does she fit in coaching? But I'd love to talk about that because clearly you are a high performance person. You do so much, and I'd love to talk about what is that aspect of your life and your business that you do there.
Yeah, so high performance coaching is having a heightened level of clarity, energy, productivity, courage, and influence.
Mm,
And when we do high performance coaching, we take a client through 10 sessions where we evaluate whether it's your business or your personal life on all of those different categories. And a lot of time what the reason I got into coaching is I get frustrated, right?
mm,
Somebody is doing something real well at work, and then when they come home, they don't do the same thing. They don't
mm,
approach it the same way. I'll give you an example. Uh, I'm sure you have friends like this. You go into the car and let's go eat lunch, right? And the friend will pull up, these are the three restaurants. Which one do you want? And then you pick one, and then the friend will say how many reviews that restaurant has, and then they will tell you, how far it is, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera, right? So you're only going to lunch, and people take time to go into all those details
mhm,
to make sure that they have a good lunch. And then they go to work and it's whatever. You know, oh, my task is to, my job is to do these three tasks. Okay, I'll do the three tasks. And they don't approach it the same way, right?
mm, yeah,
They want to make sure that they have a good lunch, but maybe they don't make sure that they can have a good day
mm,
or a productive day. So it
yeah,
becomes a way of life, right?
mm,
So the high performance that we're going after is for that to become your way of life. If you're always thinking, being productive, being efficient, well, it should be the same way when you're home. And people will tell me, well, I don't know how you do all these things.
mm,
Well, I'm thinking trying to be productive. You know,
yeah,
when, yeah, usually Sunday morning when the kids were younger, Sunday morning is when I cook 5 or 6 things.
mhm,
And when they were younger, I also make them come help me,
mhm,
slice the vegetable or whatever. And we prepare for the week.
mm.
When they were younger, it could last 3, 4 days. When they get older, it lasts like a day and a half, right? With the food that we cook. But I think that's the mentality. If I
Mm,
go to work and I compartmentalize my work, and I say I'm going to do these procedure in the morning, because I need to be fresh or whatever. And then the
mm,
smaller procedure in the afternoon, that's the same way that I'm approaching my week, right? To
mm,
plan whether it's the kids thing or the family thing. And we want people with that mentality. Um, the people like if we talk about influence,
mhm,
as a parent, we automatically have influence over our kids, right? Well, how do you justify that influence when you're at work?
Mhm.
Um, just because you're the one, paying people, making the payroll, it doesn't mean that you're that boss, right?
Mhm.
That people
Mhm.
respect you. It has to be earned. If you're showing up in a boardroom, how do you create that influence? So there's
Mhm.
certain things that you do, you know, certain way that you talk, certain
Mhm.
certain names that you drop or whatever you want to do. But that all create that influence. And that's why I love the anthology book. It's not just a book because we like you say, we both have written books. I
Mhm.
think my personal book and collaboration book, I think the newest one is number 18. It's from Refugee to Success Catalyst, and it's published
Mhm.
by the Los Angeles Tribune. But it's the association with all the other women that
Mhm.
create that influence. Because we can
Yeah.
certainly write a book, but why would we choose to write a chapter and be in the presence with, our other friends? So a lot of it also is strategy, right?
Mhm.
So people don't just go, oh yeah, I want to do this, but what does this do for you from a career standpoint or a personal standpoint? Because sometimes, certainly, we do things just to feel good, right?
Mhm.
Just to,
Yeah.
to fulfill but at other times, I think if everybody be a little bit more strategic, like for example, if they have the opportunity to be in the book, in the next book, they should say yes, because that is a strategy. That is the
Mhm.
association, the power of association, and
Mhm.
that's one of the fastest ways to create influence. You're not just
Mhm.
talking about yourself. You have another 20 or however many women in the book. They are talking about you too.
Mhm. Yeah. Yeah, I agree. Well, and it's like you're saying so many things that resonate with me because when my kids were younger as well, they're now teens in high school, but it was like I had to take the chaos of my life, excuse me, and like put it under control because I needed to be a high performing woman, but I couldn't do it if I didn't have that. And I remember like food prepping meals, lunches for my husband for all week and food prepping because that was one of the things my mind was like, and it's funny, we as women think about this, like, I don't know about you, but I'd go to work and be like, oh, what am I going to do for dinner tonight? Like I needed my mind freed up because in my mind, I was like, well, because we need to do dinner and then we need to do homework. And then I still need to fit in like 4 more hours of work and I'm building out this other company. And so I had to start really looking at like what you're saying is like, if I'm going to be high performing, how do I set up my life to do that? And I know brilliant people who oftentimes they're brilliant, but they're like, I want to say, and I mean this in the nicest way because my husband's an artist. They're like a brilliant artist. And he is, of course, very good with logistics, but sometimes they need that other side, right? They have that artist mind, but they need the other side. And that's why when you surround yourself with good people and good training, this helps move you to the next high level. And so I think that's really powerful. And association is so powerful, right? Like our networks, you have a great network, I have a great network. When we pull together and we start associating ourselves with other powerful women or men, it makes a difference, right? Because someone who didn't know you connects with you. And I agree, like, I feel like these anthologies coming out, it's the first time we're doing them for She Talks. It's funny, I've been thinking about all these things for a long time, and then I just thought, let's just do them all in 1 year. Why not? 10,000 women rising, stadium events. But there's a power in that because like I was just thinking about when we did your event with the LA Tribune and those women I had on stage there with us. Those women were women from around the world who were previous supermodels and super famous people. And I remember thinking when I was sitting there on stage with them, like, wow, I can't believe I'm sitting on stage with all these women and they're my friends. And I called them and was like, can you come? And they were like, be there. And it was just a powerful thing to sit on that stage with those women and be able to, so proudly say, like, we're friends, we're colleagues, we're championing things together. And so I think that association is huge, whether you can be involved in the anthology, whether you can get to the stage and speak, whether you can be in the magazine, like any of those things are so powerful. And as I'm big about, She Talks was all about getting rid of the competition and creating the collaboration because there's so much power in that. And for a long time, I was definitely guilty of like just trying to do things on my own because that's what I thought I was supposed to do. Oh, in order to be strong woman, you have to just do it all on your own and climb to the top by yourself. And the moment that I shifted that and started doing things like anthologies, like connecting with other women, open the door. And like you're saying, I always love when I walk into a room and I go, ooh, that person is really good. It's been a while since I've had someone who's better than me. Like, I'm going to listen to that. I had that happen the other day and I was like, oh, she is good. I was like, I'm so excited because I was like taking notes. I was like,
Mhm.
yeah, this is good. And I love that. So I think this is so powerful what you're saying is I love the high performance coaching. I love how you built this out so you can play in all these spaces successfully. And also as a mom of three, I think that's very important as well. I think oftentimes we are overlooked. I'm not saying that if you're not a mom, it's not as important, but I do believe that when you add the mom aspect into your life, it becomes incredibly more complicated. And we
Yes.
want to be good moms, but we also want to follow our passions because if our kids see us follow our passions, I think that that is impactful for them, to see that. And your kids and my kids, I think, have a very different outlook on life because we're entrepreneurs and they've watched us build and struggle and build and struggle. And so I think that it creates a very different aspect of life for them to look at. So I know we're coming to the end of the podcast, and I wanted to see first, is there any other things happening that you want our listeners to be following or connecting with you on that we can make sure they know about?
Yeah, well, I would love for people to connect with me on Facebook. Um, I do have a couple of pages. It's the one with the picture of me and the Dalai Lama. That's that's the one. Connect with on that
Awesome.
one. I'm also on LinkedIn, and I think when they go to my website, dremilyletran.com, there's a form where they can fill out. We can have conversation. There's a couple of questions, like what stage are you in your business and those kind of things, so I have an understanding. I think um, for me, one of the things that I want everybody to know is, everybody starts somewhere,
Mm,
and I think you need to give yourself that grace of failure, right?
mm,
Like you say,
yeah.
sometimes it just doesn't work out, and also um, try to develop that ambition. And I
Mm,
think the second part, you need a coach. You need
mm,
somebody to help you with that, because sometimes you don't know what the ambition should be unless you know what may be in store for you in the future. And I'm sure
mm.
you heard of it. The coach is the person who see more in you than you see in yourself, right? And when I started realizing that, it was just like the light bulb goes off, because I think the first time somebody invited me to go talk at a conference or whatever, I asked my mentor at that time was Sharon Lecter, and I go, well, what do I do? Somebody invited me, and she said, that's when you have become an expert, when
Mm,
somebody reach out and invite you to be part of something.
mm,
And we don't know that, so we have to put ourselves out there, right?
mhm.
To have that
Yeah.
ambition, at least put yourself out there, let yourself be seen, and
Mhm.
then you see that the door of opportunity open up for you.
Yeah, that's powerful. Well, the last question that I'd love to ask everyone on here is if you could go back to your younger self and give your younger self advice, what would you say?
um, I always give the same advice, and that is to slow down.
Mm,
I my younger years, which is college and professional school, I was very clear in my goal, right? We gotta speed this up, which is why I did my undergrad in 3 years. You gotta speed it up because we gotta go out there. We gotta have a career. We need to make money to help the family. And I think along the way, I know I miss a lot of parties, right? Not
mm,
that I'm a party person,
yeah.
right? But now, as a busy, entrepreneur, I make time for those parties. Yeah,
Yeah.
and maybe because now I allow myself to have that time, whereas back then I didn't know. So I think those little moments that make up life,
Mm,
well, we can make up for the younger days, right? So if you're at that stage, when you're younger, like when you're a mom, right? And you have those little babies, right? And you take the time to spend time with them, to go to the parties, the kindergarten parties that 20 kids you have to go, 20 times in the year, right? Those are important. Those
mm,
are those are the time where you have to slow down, because you may go to that party and nobody at that party is the same as you. So you
mhm,
can't really talk business. You're just gonna do conversation, you're gonna talk about your kids. And those times are important. And now as a coach, those are the time that I think you need to recharge, right?
mm.
Just kind of
Yeah.
pause. You take that 10 minutes walk or whatever walk, and you play beach volleyball, right? And this is the time to slow down and recharge yourself.
That is really great advice. And I haven't had anyone say that before. So, even great advice. So, all of you aspiring women who are listening and those who are maybe at the top of their world or trying to, is that it is true that slowing down is important. And I, like you, had a real wild, crazy start in life because I had those big ambitions as well. And I do take time now to do that. And it's sometimes hard for me. It's yesterday I did not allow myself to do any work. And I'll tell you, like, I was like, okay, what do I do now? What do I do now? Right. So I was like reading a book but I was forcing myself to relax because, like you said, is enjoying these moments. And especially with the kids. Oh my goodness. As you know, it goes fast. I have all
Yes,
these pictures on Facebook popping up of when they were little. And I'm like, what? How was it that it's been that long? So I
yes,
appreciate that. And I think that's absolutely needed, especially for our women today. So I love this. Thank you so much for coming on and sharing your story and your expertise into this, because this is a powerful thing that I think is impacting our women around the world who are listening, is to hear how we as women CEOs are out there making it, doing it, learning, growing, failing, and then doing it all over again. So thank you for being on the show. I appreciate it. And we'll make sure we have all your links and everything in there. So if you're riding a bike or working on, you're like, Julie, I didn't get the links to connect to Dr. Emily. That's okay. They're going to be all in the post and everything. So you can connect with us on any of those podcast forums. So as I always say at the end of each podcast, live, love, laugh, and always be your authentic self.
Thanks for watching the She CEO podcast. Don't forget to smash that bell icon and don't forget to like and subscribe.